Hello everyone, thanks for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service. I'll be hosting the show today. Up first, satellite imagery showing a band of clouds here, actually from the Arctic coast southward into Bristol Bay, and that's cold front separating the colder conditions back to the west and the milder air here off to the east of the system. Had some clearing over the eastern interior today, as well as areas from Manuska Valley and early on into the Kenai Peninsula here, and then a break here over the southwest, starting to clear it out a little bit there over the Yukon Delta and on up to the Seward Peninsula, as well as St. Lawrence Island, Gamble, today or this afternoon. Came in with clear skies and winds down to about 8 miles an hour out of the north. Still some snow showers over at Savoonga, but those will be ending probably any minute now. And that improvement will be short-lived. You can see a mass of clouds out here heading in that'll bring more snow in later on. Otherwise, not too bad over the eastern Aleutians, just isolated showers over all of the Aleutians today with no really wind to speak of. Pretty light wind system down to the south, staying to the south. And then a system coming up northwestward here, mass of clouds, stay mostly off the panhandle. Did get a little bit of light rain this afternoon. There are some scattered shower conditions over Prince of Wales Island. Otherwise, not too bad, clearing out over Dixon Entrance on up to Metlakatla. Otherwise, mostly cloudy skies for the remainder of the panhandle, and this high cloud spreading in over Yakutat. Lingering rain and showers North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound today. And then an area, widespread area of light snow from the Arctic coast. That became flurries on the east side, but areas of light snow with this feature in the chillier air. All the way down into the Kuskokwim Valley, Sleep Mute, Nikolai, McGrath, all reporting snow this afternoon, and a mixture of a little further to the south, and then that mostly in the form of, or falling in the form of rain there with about 0.2 of an inch. At Port Hayden, one of the heavier amounts. It's a real narrow band, especially down here in the southern portion across Bristol Bay, drawing out, clearing out Kodiak Island. And this cloud mass here associated with a warm front, main low center still back over the Russian Far East, but it'll be moving east over the top of this high pressure area over the central Bering Sea. And that high is going to keep this system down to the south. Really not doing much to the Aleutians at this time, and it won't for the foreseeable future. Anyway, this cold front today right through here, and again the snow into the Kuskokwim Valley, as far east as the Alaska Range, and then northward, kind of a narrow band there into the central interior. Becomes more widespread as you approach the Brooks Range over the Koyukuk, Kobuk Valley. Light snow started this afternoon at Fort Yukon, and back to the Arctic coast there. Winds definitely a lot lighter than they have been up in that area, and anywhere from 1 to 2, maybe 3 inches of snow falling here from the western Brooks Range on out to the western Arctic coast. Lighter amounts toward the central coast, and light snow Shishmaref, light snow still at Tin City with diminishing winds. That windy area kind of shifted eastward and southward. Cape Newenham today reporting gusts of up to 52 miles an hour during the afternoon today. Platinum gusts 45 miles an hour, and still 25 to 35 here over the interior, Marshall to Bethel today. So a little breezier than it has been, bringing that colder air in and also drying it out. Again, rainfall along the North Gulf Coast, not too bad, about 0.4 of an inch today at Cordova and Seward, while Portage had just under 1 inch in the same 12-hour period, and 0.13 fell at Valdez. And again, isolated showers here. All the moisture really staying off the coast here and sliding up to the north, and it'll kind of back around. And as this front edges eastward, we'll see for tonight, that'll bring a better chance of precipitation in to the areas east of the Alaska Range, Cook Inlet, maybe some rain, Kenai Peninsula, mixing with snow as the chillier air comes in, especially in the elevation at all up the Snider Valley, be in the form of snow, but this nothing too terribly heavy. And that also shifts into the Fairbanks area, northward across the upper Yukon, Koyukuk Valley, Brooks Range back out to the Arctic coast, areas of light snow, flurries, and fog there. Not much in the way of wind anywhere. Still, this area, strong winds here shifting over in toward the Alaska range, so it's going to get a little gusty here. Kamishak Bay into the Barren Islands, maybe southern Cook Inlet, and eventually into Kodiak, especially Sitkinak over to Chignik and those areas down here. Could see some increase in the winds tonight, but definitely nothing heavy. Isolated showers, Alaska Peninsula, clearing out there, Togiak, Kuskokwim Bay over to Dillingham, as well as not too bad over the southwest interior. Just a few scattered snow showers behind that front, and some rain moves into the southern southeast coast with another system. High pressure southern Bering Sea directing this system eastward there. Snow moves into St. Lawrence Island tomorrow. Periods of snow and sunshine breaking out tomorrow midday over the much of the interior here on the west side from the northern Bristol Bay areas right up into the Kobuk, Selawik Valley areas. Still some lingering snow showers or areas of light snow on the western Arctic coast. Heavier stuff now shifting off to the east. This shifting eastward and the whole thing weakening, especially south of the Alaska range. It really starts to fall apart tomorrow afternoon precipitation-wise, but still the chillier air will be coming in. And it looks like tomorrow night the surge will move northward along this frontal boundary, and by then the cold air should be in place. So depending on how far west it comes northward, could put Anchorage, Palmer, Eagle River, could see some snow, but right now only a 30% chance. And rain continues over the southern half of the Panhandle. Outlook for Monday, improvement there. Still some troughs off the coast, but front moves through, weekends, and just left with some isolated showers and mostly cloudy skies. Light winds for the southeast coast, low pressure in the Gulf of Alaska. This is that batch of moisture coming northward here that wouldn't take much of a westward track to bring some snow into Cook Inlet and into the Matanuska Valley. But right now, it looks like the bulk of that will come across Prince William Sound and go into the western Copper River Basin. High pressure clearing out over the northern interior. Snow moves into the Seward Peninsula, into the southwest interior, mixing with rain down toward Bristol Bay. Low temperatures tonight, near 40 for the Panhandle, and anywhere from 10 to 20 up there in the north, and lows in the lower 20s over the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. Mid-20s, Bristol Bay, 30, south central Alaska. Highs tomorrow, not much warmer. Highs in the upper 30s, 35 to 40, south central Alaska. And teens and 20s, Brooks Range to the Arctic coast, still near 50 in the Panhandle. Lower 40s out here over the Aleutians. Upper 30s, St. Lawrence Island, the Pribilofs. Lows Monday morning, single numbers now showing up, drop down near zero, Anatuvik. And teens for the Arctic coast. Mid to upper 20s now, south central Alaska, even near freezing at Kodiak, and the highs in the 30s over southern Alaska.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on to flying weather, we've got a zone of IFR with that slow-moving cold front from the northeast interior right across Fairbanks area, or the Tanana Valley, on down into the Kenai Peninsula and pushing into Prince William Sound, and some hanging back along and just to the west of the Alaska range. Marginal VFR back to the Arctic coast, south across Kodiak, IFR, or VFR, eastern North Gulf Coast, Wrangell Mountains on down in across the northern Panhandle, then some marginal VFR down south, marginal out over the Bering Sea and the western Aleutians. For tomorrow afternoon, IFR with that warm front of the system coming out of Russia spreads eastward early on, St. Lawrence Island, and then on down the southwest coast. A little bit better conditions, drier conditions here to the east of that and to the west of this system that's slowly moving off to the east. So improving conditions going VFR along the Alaska Range tomorrow afternoon, also improving for Cook Inlet, the Sitna Valley, and the Tanana Valley as well, but deteriorating conditions over toward the east and in across the western Copper River Basin, still the Kenai Peninsula in the IFR zone, but that whole band of moisture starting to dissipate, so places like even Passage Canal could become marginal by late in the afternoon. And then for Monday morning, IFR now, Prince William Sound, eastward to about Yakutat, maybe Elfin Cove, otherwise marginal for the Panhandle. Marginal VFR on the east side here, IFR Arctic coast all the way down to possibly Point Hope, but Kivalina starts the VFR zone that goes across Kobuk Valley, south in the Kuskokwim Valley, right on down to Togiak and Dillingham, and IFR really not pushing inland a little bit across the Yukon Delta and to a lesser extent the Kuskokwim Delta there back to St. Lawrence Island with that system, and then marginal VFR across the Bering Sea to the western Aleutians, VFR Adak-Atka and the south side of the Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula. And then for the afternoon Monday, that area slowly pushes eastward, not too fast, so keeping St. Lawrence Island in the IFR Prince William Sound, eastern North Gulf Coast, southern Panhandle, and a zone of IFR there for the eastern and central Arctic coast. Passes Anatuvik, IFR becoming marginal, slow improvement for Adigan as well, IFR trending toward marginal VFR. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR becoming VFR late afternoon, and rainy IFR taking a little longer there, becoming marginal in the late afternoon, and windy, same trend, improving throughout the day. That trend also for Isabel, or the reverse for Isabel, marginal VFR becomes IFR as the band comes in from the west, and Mentasta, not too bad, VFR gradually becoming marginal in mid to late afternoon. Tanita, IFR becoming marginal in the afternoon, and for Portage, same trend, improving, possibly becoming marginal VFR late in the day. And for Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR early on, otherwise looks like mostly a VFR kind of day for the day on Sunday. Freezing levels 2,000 to 6,000 feet there from Skagway down to about Juneau and Sitka, and 4,000 feet Gulf of Alaska, 2,000 feet. You can see down into northern Cook Inlet now. This is late tonight, and that'll continue to push off to the east tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night as the colder air from the west gradually moves in. 2,000 feet or less over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Icing, weakening band here coming eastward tomorrow afternoon, but still a zone of possible ice or possible considerate moderate rime. Icing be actually isolated moderate rime, and then could be considerable moderate rime with that system coming from Russia in across St. Lawrence Island, and icing threats increase along the Yukon Delta coast, and just areas of possible light mixed icing for the Panhandle. Upper level low here tracking slowly eastward. Main jet down to the south. They're cutting up across Queen Charlotte's, so not much action for the southeast coast there. Too much. And then the cold upper low trough swinging slowly eastward here. That'll eventually drop snowfall levels down to sea level, even in the south central Alaska Cook Inlet area, definitely up to the north there. And stay in the cool air here for the next several days, actually, so no big warm-ups in sight, at least at this point. And for the 9,000-foot winds, we're looking at west-northwest 25 to 30 coming over the top of this ridge. Light winds out there over the Aleutians, and 20 to 25 knot winds around the low up to the north. Winds increasing a little bit here on the southeast coast, but not too bad. Same pattern here, 3,000 feet. Moving on to turbulence. Moderate chop here, Bristol Bay up into the southern Alaska Range, east side of Kodiak Island along the southeast coast.
When you think of a national park, you probably envision wide open natural spaces, undisturbed by human activity. There are indeed such places, but even in some of the most remote areas of a place like Kenai Fjords National Park in Alaska, the mark of man is present. Marine debris is a menace to the farthest reaches of our globe, and even designated national park lands are not immune. In the summer of 2009, the Resurrection Bay Conservation Alliance, a grassroots conservation organization based in Seward, Alaska, decided to do something about the marine debris fouling the beaches of Kenai Fjords National Park. Marine debris coordinator Tim Johnson had first-hand experience with the issue.
The summer before, my wife and I, Michelle, had done a paddle from Seward, sea kayak paddle from Seward to Homer. Really, our eyes were open to some areas that we didn't realize there was so much accumulation. It was very deceiving up front. You couldn't really get a feel for the extent and impact of it. You've got this nice high tide line that's quite pristine, and you really don't get a picture for the impact, the amount of debris in that area until you get behind those storm berms. You get back into the lagoons and the vegetation around those lagoons. And then you see the absolute extent back into that veg and how intertwined and enmeshed these decades of trash deposition. So we were just appalled by that and said we got to get something together on a larger scale.
The Resurrection Bay Conservation Alliance is a local nonprofit community organization, and they have been instrumental in helping the Park Service obtain funding to get larger boats to help move the debris, and they get volunteer labor and organize the work trips. And so it's really a partnership between the Park Service and the community to help get out and really get a project done that in and of itself any one group couldn't do on their own.
Most of that trash was baggable. However, there were large items, huge, piles of hauser line, for example, that we just had to hoist up onto the boat.
The volunteers didn't just bag, haul, and hoist the garbage, but also carefully recorded what types of debris were collected.
In many ways, the debris itself is a resource. Archaeologists use middens, the trash heaps, as a way of analyzing past cultures. And in one sense, marine debris is a form of a midden. It's a trash heap that left for the future would be something that people could use to analyze our culture. It may not say the best things about our culture or everything that we want, but we need to be able to document what we've done so that we can preserve that legacy, make sure that we as a society don't forget what we've been doing.
We had two larger categories of marine debris that we picked up. Commercial fishing means like, say, gill nets, large hauser lines, anything that would be associated with more of a commercial fishing scale. And then the second category was more recreational fishing and household, which would be general plastics, things like that. So we had about a 75% of the commercial fishing marine debris element, and about 25% of the recreational and household further out the bay. And we had the exact opposite the closer we got to Seward. Within the bay, it was about 25% commercial fishing versus 75% recreational fishing and household.
The trash is not just unsightly for park visitors, but also poses threats to wildlife and marine habitat.
Really one of the larger issues now that you go to this plastic that can really get into the food web and affect the food web differently than something like glass.
These substances, for instance, all these polystyrene blocks that are breaking down into all these little crumbly bits are further breaking down on a microscopic level, and how much of an impact that has, in this ecosystem is yet to be determined, but I think it's got pretty high potential.
Well known that sea turtles will eat plastic bags floating in the water. They look like jellyfish to a sea turtle, and Obviously, a plastic bag doesn't go well in the digestive system of a turtle. Albatross will see small pieces of plastic floating on the surface and think they're small fish and other food sources and eat that in their stomachs, especially in some of the northwestern Hawaiian Islands. They'll find dead albatross that have starved to death with a full stomach, and it's full of pieces of plastic.
We're affecting our local areas this way, but we need to be thinking about it from more of a state and a global, international scale. And most importantly, to try and focus on prevention of it coming in the first place. Because we're just going to see this continuing, to build up on our beaches unless we're able to get a little bit more of an approach on prevention on the front end.
Marine debris is really a global problem, in all the oceans, and there are many different sources. Global shipping is one. Fishing debris from commercial fishing, recreational boating activity on land, stuff blowing off land, washing down streams, people just throwing stuff on the shore.
Though the problem can seem overwhelming, Johnson remains upbeat about making a positive difference.
No, you gotta start locally. You gotta take control of what you can do, and make something with that, and try and move on from there.
Overall, more than 9 tons of debris was removed from the beaches of Kenai Fjords National Park and transported back to Seward to be deposited in a landfill.
People gave a lot to the project in order to make it happen. That was awesome. One of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. Being able to put that large of a group of volunteers together, dedicated volunteers to put that much effort and give that much time and pull all the different agencies together to see it all happen was incredible. It was incredible. Yeah, very fulfilling experience.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis showing that ice is now filled in the entire stretch of the coastline. That open area there is now all ice back to about the central coast there, just north of Point Barrow. And then, of course, still open out here over the Chukchi Sea, but the Beaufort Sea is now ice covered. And for the coastal water forecasts, we've got some gales and small craft advisories for southeast winds 25 to 35 knots here along the coast. Outer coastline seas 13 feet. And Clarence Strait, southeast 25, northeast 25 Stevens Passage, and north 30 for Lynn Canal. For Monday, winds come down here, north 15 for Lynn Canal, and then southeast at 10, Stevens Passage getting pretty light, 15 knots for Clarence Strait. South winds 20 knots there for the southern coast and 25 knots up to the north with 8 to 11 foot seas. Prince William Sound looks like northwest 25, seas 3 feet, otherwise northeast 15 for the eastern North Gulf Coast, pick up to about 20 on the west side here, and then gales northwesterlies 35 knots for the Barren Islands and even 40 knots here for Kamishak Bay tomorrow, 12 foot seas. Small craft advisories, southern Cook Inlet, north winds 25, northeast 20 north of the Forelands. And on Monday, north 15 for Cook Inlet, seas 3 to 5 feet, northwest 30 knots. There for Kamishak Bay, holding on to the gales for the Barren Islands out of the northwest, and small craft advisories, northwest 25, western North Gulf Coast, swinging around to the east here at 20 there for the east side, and Prince William Sound still northwest but down to 20 knots. And for Shelikof Strait, northwest 35 knots, otherwise north 30 on the east side of Kodiak. Sitkinak to Castle Cape, northwest 40 knots there, that narrow band of pretty good winds. 30 knot winds here for Bristol Bay all the way down to Cape Sarachev, and actually the entire Alaska Peninsula with 10 foot seas. And for Monday, coming down to northwest 15 on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, west 15 for Bristol Bay. Small craft advisories here for northwest 25 to 30 across Kodiak Island with 6 to 9 foot seas. Sitkinak to Castle Cape, 30 knots out of the north, seas 12 feet, and 20 knots there for the Pacific side of the peninsula. Western Aleutians, east winds 15 to 20 knots, turn east-northeast 20 to 25 for Adak and Atka, and then north to northeast 15 to 20 for the Fox Islands, with those seas running 7 to 9 feet. And for Monday, small craft advisory showing up, northeast 25 here on the southern marine zones there, the Fox Islands. Otherwise, on the north side, northeast 10 to 15. And the central Aleutians, northeast 15 to 20. Really light winds now out over the far western Aleutians with 10-knot winds and 7 to 8 foot seas. For the southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, northerlies 30 knots. Winds coming down to 10 knots from the northeast for the Pribilofs, and then southwest 30 knots here right up into the Yukon Delta coastline with seas 9 to 11 feet, southeast 25 there for St. Lawrence Island. And the outlook for Monday, east winds 25 knots, Norton Sound, St. Lawrence Island, and then westerlies here 30 knots for the northern Bering Sea, areas north of St. Lawrence Island, kind of indicating a frontal boundary right through here. Southwest 20 to 30 from the Pribilofs on up into Kuskokwim Bay. And for the eastern Boulevard Sea coast, north to northeast 10 knots, north 15 for the central and west side, and north to northwest 10 to 15 here into the Chukchi Sea. And then for Monday, swing the direction around reverses here, south to southeast 15 from Wales up to Cape Beaufort, and then south winds on the western coast become north on the central coast, turning west 10 to 15 on the east side to Demarcation Point. And of course, all this ice covered now. Sea still 3 feet for the central coast and the west side. And for tonight, again, areas of snow up there. Heaviest back to the west here. Could see several inches. And that also is this slow-moving cold front will bring snow, or continue it over the Koyukuk Valley into the western upper Yukon Valley to the Central Brooks Range, scattering out a few isolated snow showers behind the front. Dry and colder here over the southwest interior. Still pretty breezy, but diminishing winds along the coast here as that band shifts eastward into Kodiak. Now bringing the gales for tomorrow there. Rain and snow. And tomorrow afternoon, snowfall levels coming down, but the moisture runs out before it gets down to sea level for Cook Inlet. More rain in the Panhandle, more snow from the northern Bering Sea. That moves into the Seward Peninsula and the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta with rain and snow into Bristol Bay for Monday. A lot drier and chillier here over the central and northern interior with high pressure building in and scattered showers for the southeast coast. That's a look at the weather. Thanks so much for joining us.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.